From our sources, we're learning that Russia was slightly caught by surprise by the speed of this agreement that was hammered out between Ukraine and the US. And Putin is probably going to agree to some sort of a truce, but before he does, he'll try to insert many of Russia's own conditions into it, and that may string out the timetable, which is also important for Russia because they're making some advances in the Kursk region, which Ukraine has been occupying for months, and Putin is very keen to ensure that they retake that territory so that it doesn't become a bargaining chip in any negotiations.
Yeah, absolutely, and Putin was in Kursk yesterday, wasn't he, sort of in military fatigues or sort of military camouflage gear. He's also hosting the Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko today. In terms of what the Europeans do then to try to shore things up, the UK and France trying to come up with this plan to bolster Ukraine's position, how actually do you think that would work?
Yes, I think Putin in military fatigues was a clear signal to Trump that he's not going to be a pushover in any of these talks. And the Europeans, I think, are also taking the position that whatever comes from these talks, Ukraine is going to need very strong security guarantees. And there's a degree of doubt now in European defense ministries about whether the US would be involved in providing anything that would help them do that. So they're trying to get together and forge something like that's being called a reassurance force, European, non-European, non-NATO countries involved as well, because one of the key issues is that Russia is firmly rejecting any presence of NATO troops on Ukrainian territory. And leading European powers, particularly the UK and France, take the view that they have to be on the ground there. So that's a clear point of contention. So far, we don't see how that's going to work out.
Okay, so that's a clear, as you say, a clear element of these discussions that is yet to be bridged, and seems like a long way from doing that. And yet we have reporting from our Big Take team looking at how some investors in some quarters are already trying to sniff out deals and get access and at least exposure to Russian assets on what seemingly kind of bold bet, some could describe it, that there will be a ceasefire.
Yes, our Big Take story today reports on the fact that there's rising interest being recorded in trading houses and in investment companies among clients looking to get hold of Russian assets. And the thinking there is that these are deeply discounted securities. If sanctions are lifted, those discounts will disappear and they'll make money. As you said, it's an enormous geopolitical gamble on the outcome in Russia. At stake, though, are hundreds of billions of dollars of trade and investment. So you can see why the interest is rising there.
But how much has Russia's economy changed? I mean, if sanctions were lifted, how quickly could Russia then actually return to markets? And, you know, I read a lot about how Russia is now a war economy, a wartime economy, that things have shifted very radically. What's your view?
Yes, I mean, Russia ramped up defense production, ramped up spending on the military. Something like 40% of the state budget this year, for example, will go on defense and domestic security. So there's not an obvious entryway for foreign investors because of the amount of spending on the military. Russia, of course, is also going to impose conditions, very likely, on the return of foreign direct investment, because there was a sense of resentment in many cases about the way Western companies left Russia. And in the interim, companies, for example, from China have filled that gap in terms of the domestic market. So it's not a straightforward return if Russia reopens to the global financial markets. The key, I think, for Russia, the most important thing is that they get some of the financial sanctions lifted so that they can start trading in the dollar, because that has really hurt their companies in terms of payments difficulties for trade across the world.